That is not her name. Noah Brooks said it so softly that, for 1 second, only his father heard him over the squeak of the hospital bed wheels and the low hiss of oxygen. At the open door of R3, a little girl lay half awake with a cream-colored stuffed bunny tucked under her arm, while a white bracelet on her wrist showed the wrong name. Owen Brooks stepped in front of the gurney with a yellow mop handle across the doorway. Dr. Miles Renner snapped, "Move him out." Noah pointed harder and whispered, "Dad, please." 19 minutes earlier, Owen had not been trying to stop a surgery. He was only trying to finish the North Pediatric hallway before the night supervisor came back with another complaint. The floor still smelled of lemon disinfectant and old fear, the kind of fear that lived in children's sneakers, parents' coffee cups, and the thin blankets folded at the ends of hospital beds. Owen moved slowly, pushing the mop in quiet half-moons beneath the fluorescent lights, his blue-gray uniform loose at the shoulders, his scratched name badge catching the light every time he leaned forward. On the plastic chair near the vending machine, 9-year-old Noah sat with a math worksheet on his knees, one sneaker tapping without rhythm. He was not supposed to wander. Owen had said it twice. "Stay where I can see you. Use your inside voice. Do not touch anything medical." Noah had nodded the serious way children nod when they know their father is tired and trying not to show it. Then the double doors opened, and the gurney came through. A small girl was being pushed toward the surgical corridor, her dark curls flattened on one side, her lips dry, her eyelids fighting to stay open. A cream-colored bunny slipped from beneath her elbow and landed near the wheel of the bed. One nurse did not see it. Another staff member stepped around it. Carla Voss, the surgical coordinator, looked down at the toy as if it were one more delay on a day already behind schedule. Owen stopped his mop. He glanced at Noah, then bent down and picked up the bunny before the wheel could crush one soft ear. The toy was warm from the child's arm. On one ear, stitched in pale pink thread, was the name Lily. Owen brushed a streak of floor dust from the fabric with his thumb and walked it back to the gurney. The little girl's fingers twitched before she could lift her hand. "Here you go, sweetheart," Owen said, placing it gently against her palm. "Lily?" She breathed, barely more than air. Carla gave a tight smile. "She is nervous. Kids get confused before surgery." Owen looked at the child, not at Carla. "Then we will call you Lily." For a moment, the girl's grip closed around the bunny. Her breathing eased. Noah watched from his chair, pencil frozen above his worksheet. He had heard his father say things like that before, usually in places where nobody important was listening. A name was not small to Owen Brooks. A name was how you found the right room, the right medicine, the right person before a mistake became something no apology could fix. Ahead of them, Victor Crane appeared near the hors d'oeuvres in a navy suit, speaking softly to Elena Hartwell, whose expensive coat was folded over one arm and whose face looked too pale for a woman everyone kept calling powerful. "We are moving quickly because your daughter is a priority," Victor told her. "No need to worry about the small staff issues." But he did not say Lily. He said priority. He said daughter. He said schedule. The gurney rolled forward, and Noah stood just high enough to see the child's wrist as the blanket shifted. The white bracelet turned under the fluorescent light, and the first printed letter was not L. It was M. The first printed letter was not L. It was M. Noah's pencil slipped from his fingers and tapped once against the tile. A tiny sound almost swallowed by the rolling gurney and the soft beeping from the monitor clipped to the bed rail. He stood too fast, his math worksheet sliding from his lap, and his hand closed around the sleeve of Owen's uniform. "Dad." Owen looked down. Noah's face had lost its color. "That's not her name." The words did not come out loud, but they landed hard enough to make Owen stop breathing for half a second. He followed his son's eyes to the bracelet, but Carla Voss had already shifted beside the bed, her clipboard angled against her chest, her body moving. With the practiced neatness of someone used to placing herself between a question and an answer, the blanket slid higher over the child's wrist. The bunny stayed visible. Lily stayed small beneath the hospital lights. "Sir, step back." Dr. Miles Renner's voice cut cleanly through the corridor. "Step back now." Owen lifted one hand, palm open, the other still wrapped around the mop handle. Her bracelet needs to be checked. This is a surgical corridor. I understand. Then act like it. The doors 2 or 3 breathed open behind them with a rubbery sigh. Cold air rolled out, carrying the sharp smell of antiseptic and metal. Owen could see the polished floor inside, the blue surgical drapes waiting on a stainless tray, the anesthesia mask resting in a gloved hand. He did not move into the sterile field. He only turned the mop sideways across the threshold, not like a weapon, but like a quiet line nobody should cross until a child's name was spoken correctly. Dr. Renner looked at the mop, then at Owen's shoes, then at the scratched badge on his chest. His mouth tightened. This corridor is for clinicians, not janitors with opinions. The sentence did not have to be shouted. That made it worse. A young nurse looked down at the floor. A transport aide suddenly became busy adjusting a wheel lock that was already set. Noah shrank behind his father's hip, but his eyes stayed on the place where the bracelet had disappeared beneath the blanket. Owen felt the boy's fingers tremble against his shirt. He wanted to kneel to tell Noah it was all right, but the bed was still moving by inches, and inches mattered now. "Read the bracelet out loud," Owen said. Carla smiled, not warmly, but smoothly. "Mr. Brooks, I know you mean well. Children get anxious. Parents get anxious. Staff gets anxious. But we have a verified schedule and a medical team waiting." She tapped the clipboard with one manicured finger. "We cannot let hallway confusion interrupt patient care. Then there is no harm in reading it. There is harm in delaying anesthesia. There is more harm in giving it to the wrong child." For the first time, the anesthesiologist's hand lowered a fraction. The mask hovered over the tray instead of Lily's face. That small movement changed the air. Victor Crane noticed it at once. He stepped closer from Elena Hartwell's side, his navy suit smooth, his voice lower than everyone else's, as if politeness could make authority feel gentle. "Let's de-escalate," he said. "Mr. Brooks is understandably concerned, but this is not his role. Security can help him return to his assigned area, and we will continue caring for the patient." He turned slightly toward Elena before she could see around him. "Just a staffing interruption, Mrs. Hartwell." Elena's eyes narrowed. She had the face of a woman who had signed too many forms too quickly and was only now hearing a word that did not belong. Staffing. Not medical. Not safety. Staffing. "What interruption?" she asked. Victor kept his smile. "Nothing that concerns your daughter's care." But he still had not said Lily. Owen heard that omission like a dropped instrument on tile. Lily made a small sound from the bed, a dry, frightened hum. The bunny's stitched ear rested against her cheek. The pink letters turned outward now. Lily. Noah saw it too. He swallowed hard and pointed. Not at the doctors, not at Victor, only at the toy. "Her bunny says Lily," he whispered. Dr. Renner's eyes flicked down, then back up too quickly. "Children name toys all kinds of things." "She said Lily," Noah answered, quieter now. "Enough," Renner said. The word snapped Noah's shoulders inward. Owen moved one step in front of his son, careful not to touch the doctor, careful not to raise his voice. "Do not speak to him like he did something wrong for reading." A security guard arrived at the edge of the corridor, his radio crackling softly against the hush. Carla used the moment to reach toward the tablet clipped to the foot of the gurney. The screen woke under her thumb. For one brief second, before she locked it again, the patient photo flashed bright under the fluorescent lights. A little girl with shorter hair, rounder cheeks, and no cream-colored bunny tucked under her arm. Elena saw only a sliver of it. Owen saw enough. Noah saw enough to grip his father's sleeve again. Carla turned the screen dark and tucked the tablet flat against the chart as if closing a door. Victor's smile did not change, but his hand tightened around the folder he was holding. "Move the VIP case forward," he said softly. "We have already lost time." Owen looked from the covered bracelet to the dark tablet to the bunny with Lily stitched into its ear, and a cold question opened in him. If this was only hallway confusion, why was everybody working so hard not to read one child's name? The answer, at first, looked like nothing anyone in that hallway would have called important. It looked like a tired man bending down for a stuffed animal. It looked like a mop bucket left beside a vending machine, a math worksheet sliding off a plastic chair, a little boy watching his father do the kind of small thing adults stepped over when they were busy. But Owen Brooks had built his life out of small things. Rent paid 3 days late but paid. Noah's lunch packed before dawn. A uniform washed in the sink because the laundromat cost $6 he needed for bus fare. A name checked twice on a prescription label because once, years ago, a hospital mistake had taught him that paperwork could hurt a family as deeply as any blade. He did not tell that story in the corridor. He never used his grief like a badge. He only lived with it folded inside him, quiet and sharp, and tried to raise his son to notice what careless people called details. 19 minutes before Dr. Renner ordered security to move him, Owen had been at the far end of the pediatric hallway, pushing his yellow mop through a spill near the surgical elevators. The spill was small, just a half-moon of water under the bright lights, but it sat directly in the path where gurney wheels turned toward or through. A transport aide had walked past it. A nurse had stepped around it. Carla Voss had glanced at it and said into her headset, "Housekeeping is on it." As if Owen were not close enough to hear the words flatten him into a task. Owen did not answer. He wrung the mop until gray water twisted into the bucket, then wiped the tile slowly until the shine came back. Noah watched him from the chair near the vending machine. His pencil paused above a long division problem. "Is it bad?" he asked. Owen looked at the wet floor, then at the elevator doors. "Only if nobody thinks it matters." Noah nodded as if that made sense, because in Owen's world, that was how danger usually arrived. Not as thunder. As something small everyone was too important to notice. The elevator opened with a soft chime, and Lily's gurney rolled out. She was tiny beneath the blanket, her curls pressed damply to her forehead. Her eyelids heavy from medicine given too early for a child who still looked scared. A cream-colored bunny was tucked under her arm, but when the wheels bumped over the seam in the tile, the toy slipped free and fell near the place Owen had just dried. One ear dragged through the last streak of diluted disinfectant. No one stopped. Carla was looking at the schedule on her clipboard. Dr. Renner was speaking to the anesthesiologist. A young nurse adjusted the four-pole without glancing down. Owen set the mop against the wall and picked up the bunny before the rear wheel could catch it. He did not do it dramatically. He did not call attention to himself. He turned the toy over in his rough hands and saw the pale pink thread stitched into one ear. Lily. The letters were a little crooked, homemade, the kind someone had sewn with care rather than bought with money. Owen used the clean edge of his sleeve to wipe the damp ear, then stepped beside the bed, keeping his shoes outside the marked line on the floor. "Here you go, sweetheart," he said. Lily's fingers moved weakly. She did not take the bunny at first. She looked at him as though she had been waiting for someone to ask permission before handing her back a piece of herself. "Lily," she breathed. Carla looked up too quickly. "She's nervous," she said, her smile clipped and polished. "Children mix things up before surgery." Owen's eyes stayed on the child. "Then we'll call you Lily." Something in Lily's face loosened. Not much. Just enough for her hand to close around the bunny's body, thumb pressing against the stitched name. Noah stood from his chair without realizing it. The pencil rolled off his worksheet and bounced once under the vending machine, but he did not bend for it. He was watching the way his father lowered his voice for frightened people. He had seen Owen do that with neighbors who could not pay for a locksmith, with an old man at the bus stop who forgot which route took him home, with Noah himself on the nights he woke from dreams of a mother whose voice was becoming harder to remember. Owen did not fix the whole world. He fixed what was in reach. The wheel, the spill, the toy, the name. "Dad," Noah said quietly when the gurney began moving again. Owen glanced back, thinking his son wanted the pencil. Instead, Noah pointed toward the girl's wrist. The blanket had shifted as Lily hugged the bunny, and for 1 second the white bracelet turned outward under the fluorescent light. Owen saw only a blur of black letters before Carla tugged the blanket smooth again. But Noah was closer, and children who are taught to notice small things sometimes notice them before the room has decided they are allowed to matter. Carla leaned over the bed and tucked the bunny tighter against Lily's side, her clipboard covering the wrist now. "We have to keep moving," she said. "The Hartwell case is time-sensitive." Owen heard the words. Hartwell case. Not Lily. He looked at the toy, at the hidden bracelet, at Noah's suddenly still face, and understood that the stuffed bunny he had almost let a wheel crush might be the first thing in that hallway still brave enough to say who the child really was. The stuffed bunny had done what no adult in that corridor wanted to do. It had kept the child's name visible. Owen saw it in the pale pink thread. Noah saw it in the way Lily's thumb pressed against the stitched ear, and for one fragile second even the air around the gurney seemed to hesitate. Then Carla Voss moved. Her clipboard slid down like a curtain. The blanket smoothed over the child's wrist, and the corridor returned to motion. "We need to proceed," she said. Not unkindly, not loudly, but with the clean final tone of a person who knew how to make pressure sound like procedure. Dr. Renner glanced toward the hors d'oeuvres. "Mr. Brooks, you returned a toy. That was appreciated. Now step away." "Her bracelet says Maya." Noah's voice broke on. "The name." No one answered him at first. The monitor clipped to the rail gave one small beep, then another. Somewhere behind the double doors, metal touched metal on a surgical tray. Owen felt the eyes on him change. A moment ago, he had been a janitor who had stepped out of place. Now he was a janitor whose son was making a claim serious enough to delay a donor's daughter, serious enough to embarrass a doctor, serious enough to make a whole line of professionals choose whether to look down or look closer. Owen did not touch the child. He did not pull the blanket back. He did not reach for the chart. He only turned his body slightly so the fluorescent light fell across the edge of the wristband that Carla had not fully covered. Black printed letters curved around the plastic. "M-A-Y." Noah pointed, small finger trembling. "It starts with M." "Many hospital labels contain multiple names," Carla said quickly. "Middle names, guardian names, temporary transport identifiers. It can look confusing if you are not trained." "Then read it," Owen said. "Mr. Brooks," Victor Crane interrupted, soft as a hand closing over a door handle. "You are asking clinical staff to answer to a child's misunderstanding in a critical pathway. I cannot allow that." Elena Hartwell had reached the edge of the corridor now. Her face was composed, but the skin around her mouth had tightened. She looked first at the white bracelet, then at Owen's uniform, then at her daughter's closed eyes. It was not belief in her expression. It was not trust. It was the harder, more careful look of a mother trying to separate fear from fact while powerful people spoke over both. "What is he saying?" she asked. Victor turned to her immediately. "Mrs. Hartwell, this is a minor identification concern raised by non-clinical personnel. We verify all patients through approved channels." "Then verify her." The words came out before she seemed to decide whether she meant them. Victor's smile held, but his fingers tightened around the folder in his hand. Carla reached for the tablet clipped to the foot of the gurney. Owen watched her thumb wake the screen. For less than a second, the patient photo appeared again, bright and cold against the glass. The little girl in the file had shorter hair, rounder cheeks, and a small gap between her front teeth. Lily Hartwell, lying on the bed, had long dark curls stuck to her temple and no gap Owen could see when her lips parted in a frightened breath. Carla locked the screen so fast the reflection of the lights swallowed the image. "The system photo can lag after an intake update," she said. "It happens during high-volume evenings." Beverly Tate, the head nurse, had been standing near the medication cart with one hand resting on the drawer handle. She was older than the others, with tired eyes and the stillness of someone who had seen enough hospital nights to know when a room was too eager to move on. Her gaze shifted from the dark tablet to the hidden wristband to the bunny. "Was the bracelet scanned at the door?" she asked. Dr. Renner exhaled through his nose. "Nurse Tate, please. We are not going to restart intake because housekeeping frightened a child." Owen lowered his eyes to Noah for half a second. The boy's face was tight with shame now, as if he had done something wrong by reading what was in front of him. Owen put one hand lightly against Noah's shoulder, not to push him forward, not to make him braver than a 9-year-old should have to be, only to remind him he was not standing alone. He read letters, Owen said. That is all he did. Beverly looked toward the transfer board beside the elevator. It was a white magnetic board with colored strips that staff changed by hand whenever patients moved. Most people in the corridor had stopped seeing it the way busy places stop seeing their own walls. Owen followed her eyes. 2 lines sat close together in black marker. Hartwell, Lily, cardiac prep, or 3. Reed, Maya, appendectomy prep, or hold. The times written beside them were the same. 7:40 p.m. same floor. Same transfer window. Same corridor. Owen pointed, slowly, without stepping away from the door. Bracelet, face chart, he said. All 3 should agree. The sentence did not sound like an accusation. That made it more difficult to dismiss. Elena looked at the board. Her eyes stopped on the name Lily, then on Maya, then on the shared time. For the first time, her hand moved to the rail of her daughter's gurney. Victor saw it and stepped half an inch closer, not enough to block her, but enough to guide the picture back under his control. Transfer boards are not clinical records, he said. They are visual aids. They are often updated out of sequence. Out of sequence, Beverly repeated, and something in her voice had changed. She reached for the handheld scanner clipped beside the medication cart. Carla's head turned too quickly. Beverly, that unit is a backup. It has been unreliable. Then it will fail, Beverly said. And we will know. She lifted the scanner. Its small red light blinked against her palm. The corridor went thin and quiet, all breath and plastic and fluorescent hum. Owen did not move. Noah stared at the bracelet. Elena stared at Beverly. Dr. Renner's jaw tightened. Victor placed his hand flat on the counter between Beverly and the bed, still smiling, still polite, and said, "No more delays." And Owen understood that the first real clue was not only the wrong name on the bracelet, or the wrong face on the tablet, or the 2 matching times on the transfer board. It was the fact that the people calling this a misunderstanding were suddenly afraid of a machine built to tell the truth. "No more delays," Victor Crane said, and because his voice stayed calm, some people in the corridor almost accepted it as reason. His palm remained flat on the counter between Beverly Tate and the scanner, not forceful enough to look like obstruction, just firm enough to remind everyone whose name was on the administrative floor above them. The little red light on the handheld scanner blinked against Beverly's fingers, or 3 breathed cold air behind Lily's gurney. The anesthesia mask sat waiting on a steel tray, clear plastic fogging faintly from the room's chilled breath. Owen looked at Victor's hand, then at the hidden bracelet, then down at Noah, whose eyes had gone glassy with the terrible realization that adults could see something wrong and still choose not to look. Owen did not raise his voice. He reached slowly for the scratched badge clipped to his chest, the one that said Owen Brooks, Environmental Services, the one Dr. Renner had already judged before reading the name beneath it. He unclipped it and set it on the nurse's counter beside Beverly's gloved hand. The plastic made a small, dry sound against the laminate. "My job can wait," he said. "Her name can't." Nobody moved for a breath. A nurse who had been rolling a stool with her foot stopped mid-push, the wheel giving one last squeak and falling silent. The hum of the air conditioner grew suddenly loud. Elena Hartwell's hand tightened around the gurney rail, her ring tapping once against the metal. Dr. Renner's mouth opened, but no words came right away. Victor's smile thinned at the edges. "Mr. Brooks," he said, soft enough to sound kind, "you are putting yourself in a difficult position over a misunderstanding. Then help clear it up. This is not your responsibility." Owen looked at Lily, at the bunny pressed beneath her small fingers, at the pink thread spelling a name the room kept avoiding. "That's what people say right before a mistake belongs to nobody." Beverly exhaled through her nose. It was not dramatic. It was the sound of an experienced nurse deciding she could no longer pretend procedure was being protected by refusing to use it. She looked at Victor's hand on the counter. "I am scanning the band." Victor turned his head slightly. "Beverly, a wristband scan is procedure. This unit is a backup." Carla stepped in quickly, her clipboard hugged against her ribs. "It misreads sometimes. We have had trouble with it all week. Beverly held the scanner up, the red light trembling over the tile. Then we will document the failure. Dr. Renner glanced toward Elena, then back at the door. Every minute we stand here increases risk. Owen's eyes stayed on the child. So does guessing. The anesthesiologist, who had been silent until then, lowered the mask fully onto the tray. It made a soft plastic click. That little sound changed the balance of the corridor more than any shout could have. Elena heard it. Victor heard it. Noah heard it and pulled in his first full breath since the argument began. Beverly stepped around Victor's hand without touching him and leaned toward the gurney. "I need the wrist," she said gently. Lily did not understand all of it, but she understood gentleness. Her fingers tightened on the bunny. Owen bent slightly, keeping distance, and spoke low enough that it sounded meant only for the child. "You do not have to be brave for everybody. Just hold your bunny." Lily's thumb pressed against the stitched ear. Beverly lifted the edge of the blanket, only an inch, only enough to expose the white plastic band. Carla shifted forward. "Please be careful. We cannot contaminate the field." Beverly's eyes did not leave the bracelet. "We are not in the field." She passed the scanner over the barcode. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the device chirped. A square of pale light opened on the small screen. The letters appeared black and clean, too plain to argue with. Maya Reed, appendectomy prep, or 3 hold. The corridor did not explode. It emptied. Every whisper drained out at once. The stool stopped rocking. The paper on Beverly's clipboard fluttered in the air conditioning. Dr. Renner stared at the scanner as if the machine had spoken a language he did not want translated. Elena's hand left the rail and came down slowly onto the folder Victor had given her to sign. She did not look at Owen yet. She looked at the name on the screen. Maya Reed. Then she looked at her daughter's face. "Was my daughter seconds from anesthesia under another child's chart?" she asked. Nobody answered fast enough. Carla's hand shot toward the scanner cable. "That battery pack has been unstable," she said, and pulled the charging cord loose from the wall outlet. The device stayed on. The screen kept glowing. Beverly turned it slightly so Elena could see. "It is on battery." Carla froze for half a second, then recovered with a polished little shake of her head. "I am saying the data may not be current." "Then pull the live chart," Elena said. Victor lifted one hand. "Mrs. Hartwell, I understand how alarming this looks. We should move this conversation somewhere private so clinical staff can determine whether this is a clerical mismatch or a device issue." "No," Elena said. It was the first time her voice sounded less like a frightened mother being managed and more like a woman used to reading a room that wanted her confused. "The device is not the one being private." Owen kept his hand on Noah's shoulder. He could feel the tremor easing, but not leaving. Noah was not proud. He was scared in the quiet way children become scared when they realize truth does not always make adults kind. Owen leaned down and said, "You did not do wrong." Noah nodded without taking his eyes off the screen. Dr. Renner cleared his throat. "We still do not know that the child on the bed is not cleared under an updated identifier. Hospital systems can merge temporary profiles." Beverly looked at him, then at the bracelet. "Not across procedures without a verification note. There may be one. Then show it." Another silence. This one had edges. Victor's phone buzzed once inside his jacket. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again. Carla saw it and looked away too quickly. Owen noticed because Owen noticed small things for a living. A trash bag tied wrong. A spill trail leading back to the real leak. A door that should have latched but did not. He did not know hospital politics, and he did not pretend to, but he knew the shape of a room trying to hide where the mess began. Victor stepped closer to Carla and lowered his voice. "Not enough. Find the Reed child," he said. Quietly, the name struck the corridor differently now. Maya Reed was no longer a label on the wrong bracelet. She was a child somewhere else in the hospital. A child whose place had been taken by a billionaire's daughter and whose own surgery might be waiting on an empty bed. Noah heard it. His fingers tightened around Owen's sleeve again. Owen looked from Lily's bunny to the scanner screen to Victor's face, and the first proof opened a door much larger than the wrong name on one wrist. If Lily was here under Maya's bracelet, then where was Maya Reed? If Lily was here under Maya's bracelet, then where was Maya Reed? The question seemed to move through the corridor without anyone saying it out loud. It touched the dark tablet clipped to the gurney, the scanner still glowing in Beverly Tate's hand, the cream-colored bunny pressed against Lily's chest, and finally the empty space where another child should have been. Owen felt Noah's fingers tighten in the sleeve of his uniform, and for a moment he wanted to step back, pick up his name badge, gather his son, and let the people with degrees and suits carry the weight they had been trained to carry. But Lily was still on the bed. Maya was missing from hers, and the hallway was full of adults trying to decide whether the truth was inconvenient enough to postpone. "Find Maya Reed," Owen said. Not loudly, not as an order, just plainly, as if the child's name itself deserved to be returned to the room. Victor Crane's head turned toward him with the slow patience of a man who had built a career on never seeming angry. "Mr. Brooks, we are handling it." "Quietly?" Owen asked. Victor's smile did not leave, but the skin beneath one eye tightened. "For the family's privacy." "Which family?" That was the first time Elena Hartwell looked directly at Owen. Not with trust. Not yet. Her eyes were red at the edges, but sharp now, no longer softened by the steady stream of professional voices that had guided her from form to form. She looked from Owen to Victor. "Which family is he asking about?" Beverly did not wait for permission. She turned toward the wall terminal beside the medication cart and tapped in her code with 2 fingers that were steady only because she forced them to be. The printer beneath the counter clicked awake. The screen lit her face in pale blue. "I am opening the transfer log." Carla stepped close. "Beverly, we should not access that in the hallway." A child was almost anesthetized under another child's bracelet, Beverly said. "The hallway is already involved." Dr. Renner looked toward the oar, then toward Elena, then down at Lily, as if the physical presence of the child made every excuse harder to hold. "There may have been a temporary profile merge," he said, but his voice had lost the clean edge it carried when he was humiliating Owen. "It happens. Not with a different procedure," Beverly said. "Not without a verification note." The log opened. Lines of names and timestamps filled the screen, too small for most of the corridor to read. But Beverly leaned closer, scrolling with the side of her thumb. Owen stayed where he was, one hand on Noah's shoulder, the other still near the mop handle across the door. He did not pretend to understand every code, but he understood patterns. A wrong bag placed outside the wrong room. A leak that started 3 doors down from the puddle. A man in a suit who called children cases until the machine showed their names. Beverly stopped scrolling. The printer stopped clicking. The sudden quiet was so clean it felt cut. "Hartwell Lily," she read. "Cardiac prep or 3. Reed, Maya. Appendectomy prep or hold." Both transfer statuses changed at 7:40. Elena moved closer to the screen. "By whom?" Beverly hesitated, and that hesitation told the room the answer had weight. "Manual override," she said. Carla's face went still. Victor looked at the terminal, then at the security camera dome in the corner of the ceiling, then back at Beverly. It was a tiny movement, but Owen saw it. So did Elena. "Manual override does not mean misconduct," Victor said gently. "It means the system required human adjustment. Hospitals are overloaded. Tonight especially." Beverly clicked the detail line. Another window opened. The screen showed an ID, a time, and a short note entered into the transfer system. "Vas, Carla. 7:40 p.m. VIP first." For 1 second, nobody seemed willing to breathe around those 2 words. VIP first. Not Lily first. Not urgent first. Not verified first. Owen stared at the phrase until the letters blurred, and something old moved behind his ribs. He saw another hospital counter from years before. Another tired employee saying a transfer had been corrected. Another form with a wrong room number printed too cleanly to look dangerous. His wife had been alive when the mistake was made. By the time the right people admitted it, the apology had nothing left to save. The memory rose like cold water, but Owen pushed it down. This was not the time to bleed in public. This was not about proving his pain had taught him something. It was about two little girls with names the system had treated like movable labels. "Where is Maya?" he asked again. Carla swallowed. "She should be in."
Pré-op-hol.
"Should be."
Elena repeated.
Beverly picked up the desk phone and dialed with one hand while keeping the transfer log open with the other. "This is Tate in Surgical Corridor 3. Confirm location for Maya Reed, 6-year-old female, appendectomy prep." The receiver crackled. A voice answered faintly, too far away for everyone else to hear clearly. Beverly listened, and the color drained from her face in a slow, awful way. "Say that again." The corridor waited. Lily whimpered in her sleep. Noah pressed closer to Owen. Beverly lowered the receiver an inch and looked at the anesthesiologist, then at Elena, then at Owen, as if the janitor's question had become the only honest map in the building. "They found Maya on the second-floor pediatric waiting bay," she said. "Wrong floor. No active pre-op nurse assigned. Her consent packet is incomplete." Dr. Renner closed his eyes. Carla whispered, "Oh God," so softly it almost disappeared beneath the air conditioning. Victor recovered first. "Then we correct both placements immediately," he said. "No need to create panic. Mrs. Hartwell, let us move this to a private conference room. We can brief you properly while staff resolves the mismatch." Elena did not move. "You called my daughter a VIP case." Victor's expression softened into something almost sorrowful. "I was trying to ensure she received prompt care." "And Maya?" Victor's mouth opened, but no answer came quickly enough. Owen looked at the transfer log again, at the manual override, at Carla's ID at VIP first. He could have turned then. He could have said what everyone could see. He could have pointed at Carla until she broke, at Renner until he apologized, at Victor until the suit lost its shine. But Maya was still on the wrong floor, Lily was still under the wrong bracelet, and revenge, even when deserved, could not verify a child's name. "Send someone to Maya now," Owen said, "and stop moving Lily until all three match." Beverly nodded before anyone above her gave permission. She grabbed her radio. "I need a nurse to second-floor PED's waiting bay now. Bring Maya Reed to Surgical Corridor 3 with original ID and guardian contact. Do not alter paperwork." That last sentence landed hard. "Do not alter paperwork." Carla flinched. Victor looked again toward the camera dome. Elena saw him do it this time. Her face changed. Not into belief in Owen exactly, but into recognition that the room had been arranged to keep her from asking the right questions. The power she carried settled over her differently now. Less like money, more like responsibility. "Preserve the log," she said. Beverly looked at her. "Mrs. Hartwell?" "The log, the scanner result, the transfer board, whatever camera covers this hallway. Preserve all of it." Victor stepped in. "That is an administrative decision." Elena finally turned to him fully. "Then administrate it where everyone can hear." The air shifted again. The proof was no longer a glowing name on a scanner or a toy with pink thread on one ear. It was a missing child, a manual override, a note that said VIP first, and a hallway full of witnesses who now understood that this mistake was too large to be carried behind a closed door. The hallway outside R3 was no longer moving like a hospital corridor. It had become something closer to a courtroom without chairs, bright with fluorescent light, crowded with people who were trying not to look afraid. Lily's gurney had been pulled back from the open operating room door, the anesthesia mask resting and used on a steel tray just inside. Maya Reed had been brought up from the second-floor pediatric waiting bay, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket, crying quietly into the sleeve of a nurse who kept saying her name out loud as if the words themselves were a safety rail. Owen Brooks stood near the wall with Noah tucked beside him, his yellow mop still leaning across the threshold where he had first stopped the bed. He did not look like a man who had won anything. His uniform was damp at the cuffs. His name badge still lay on the counter where he had placed it. His son's hand stayed hooked in his sleeve. But Owen did not step back. Beverly Tate set the scanner, the printed transfer log, and the backup consent packet on the rolling nurse's station one by one. Each object made a small sound as it touched the surface. Plastic, paper, clipboard. The sounds were plain, ordinary, and heavier than shouting. Elena Hartwell stood at Lily's bedside with one hand on her daughter's blanket and the other on the rail of Maya's gurney, close enough now to understand that this was not only a mistake involving her child. It was a mistake that had needed another child to disappear for her child to be moved forward. Victor Crane adjusted his suit jacket, then lifted both hands in a slow, open gesture. "Everyone needs to breathe," he said. "What we have here appears to be a convergence of system lag, staffing strain, and an unfortunate labeling irregularity during peak surgical traffic." The words sounded polished enough to calm someone who had not seen the bracelet. Dr. Renner seized the opening. Exactly. A mismatch was identified before incision, before anesthesia was administered. The process worked. For a moment, that sentence seemed to give the room a place to stand. A few staff members looked relieved. Carla Voss wiped beneath one eye with the side of her finger and whispered, "I was just trying to keep the schedule from collapsing. It almost worked. A tired room will accept almost anything that sounds like closure." Then Noah shifted behind Owen and looked at Maya, still crying under the thin blanket. He did not speak like a witness. He spoke like a child who could not make the adult words fit what he had seen. But she was on the wrong floor. The silence returned, smaller this time, sharper. Owen put a steady hand on Noah's shoulder. "That is enough, buddy." He was not silencing his son. He was protecting him from carrying more than a 9-year-old should carry. Beverly picked up the first piece of evidence, the scanner printout. Wristband scan at or 3 showed Maya Reed, appendectomy prep, or 3 hold. She placed it beside the white bracelet still on Lily's wrist. The band looked almost harmless now. A strip of plastic with black letters, the kind of thing thousands of parents trusted every night without thinking about it. Elena looked at the name Maya Reed, then at Lily's face. Her jaw tightened. Victor nodded as if he expected this. "A banding error," he said gently. "Serious, yes, but still a banding error." Beverly did not argue. She reached for the transfer board photograph she had taken with the hospital device before anyone could erase it. Second item. The transfer board placed Hartwell, Lily, and Reed, Maya in the same transfer window. Same floor, same corridor, same time. Victor's expression remained calm. "Transfer boards are visual aids, not clinical records." "That is what you said earlier," Owen said. His voice was low, and because it did not reach for attention, people leaned in to hear it. Victor turned to him. "Mr. Brooks, with respect, this is why these matters must be handled by qualified administrators." Owen looked at Lily, then at Maya. "I am not asking to handle it. I am asking you not to bury it." The words were not loud. They left a mark anyway. Elena's hand slowly came off Lily's blanket and rested on the folder Victor had given her earlier to sign. The folder bent slightly under her fingers. Beverly opened the consent packet. The papers inside were clipped crookedly, as if someone had straightened them in a hurry. She turned to the second page and held it under the corridor light. A label with Lily Hartwell's name had been pressed over another label beneath it, but at the lower left corner, where the sticker had not covered fully, a tiny black M still showed through. Carla inhaled so fast the sound was audible. Victor spoke before she could. "Collation error. Those packets are printed in batches. Labels sometimes overlap when staff is rushing. This proves disorganization, not intent." That was the first retention spike, the moment his explanation almost pulled the ground back under him. Disorganization sounded believable. Overworked staff sounded believable. A tired coordinator with too many patients sounded human. Even Elena looked at the paper with a flicker of uncertainty, because grief and fear do not make a person want a villain. They make a person want the simplest answer that lets their child be safe again. Owen saw the uncertainty, and he did not attack it. He reached toward the packet but stopped before touching it. "May I point?" Beverly nodded. Owen bent slightly and indicated the exposed corner without laying a finger on. "The document. The label on top is clean. The paper under it is creased. Beverly looked closer. So did Elena. The white sticker marked Lily Hartwell was smooth, fresh, pressed over a page with a fold running through the hidden label beneath. Owen continued. That page was already handled before this label went on. Beverly's eyes changed. He is right. Carla's face lost color. Dr. Renner looked from Owen to the paper, visibly irritated that the detail had come from the man he had dismissed. Victor's smile thinned. Or someone replaced a damaged label during intake. Then the camera will show that, Elena said. There was no anger in her voice now. That made it worse for him. Beverly looked toward the security dome above the corridor. I already requested hallway footage be preserved. Victor's head turned. You requested security footage without administrative approval? Mrs. Hartwell requested all records preserved, Beverly said. I followed a patient safety directive. Elena did not correct her. That was the second spike, the small shift of power Victor could feel but not yet fight. The monitor at the rolling station flickered as a security supervisor connected the hallway feed. Staff gathered in a crescent around the screen. Maya's nurse turned the little girl gently away from the crowd. Owen drew Noah closer to his side. You do not have to watch, he murmured. Noah nodded, but he kept his eyes open. The footage began 12 minutes before the hors-d'oeuvre. The corridor appeared from above, silent and bluish, everyone reduced to movements and timestamps. Lily's gurney rolled in from the elevator. Maya's gurney appeared from the opposite hallway. Carla stepped between them, clipboard against her chest. The image paused as the feed buffered. Victor stepped forward at once. Before this becomes theater, I want to remind everyone that video without context can be deeply misleading. On the frozen screen, Carla's hand hovered over 2 chart clips. Behind her, the door to the administrative consultation room opened, and Victor himself stepped into the hallway, phone at his ear. Beverly's finger rested over the play button. Elena looked at the screen, then at Victor. Owen felt Noah's grip tighten again, and the whole corridor seemed to hold its breath as the final piece of footage waited to move. Beverly pressed play, and the frozen hallway on the monitor began to move. The timestamp in the corner glowed 7:39 p.m., white numbers against bluish security footage. On the screen, Carla Voss stepped between Lily's gurney and Maya Reed's, clipboard held high against her chest. Victor Crane stood behind her with his phone at his ear, one hand in his suit pocket, calm even in silence. Then the camera showed what no explanation could soften. Carla lifted the chart clip from Maya's bed, looked toward Victor, and slid it onto Lily's rail. A second later, the packet from Lily's bed was pressed against Maya's file, hidden beneath Carla's clipboard before anyone walking by could notice. In the real corridor, Carla's breathing changed. It became shallow, almost childlike, as if she had forgotten how to stand in the body of an adult. Dr. Renner looked down. Victor did not. He kept staring at the monitor with the expression of a man still waiting for language to rescue him. That does not prove intent, he said. His voice was dry now but still controlled. It proves a coordinator moved materials during a high-pressure transfer. We can review this internally. Beverly did not answer him. She clicked another file on the hospital terminal, and the speakers gave a soft pop. The hallway camera has no audio, she said, but the administrative phone system does. Victor turned then, not quickly enough to look guilty, not slowly enough to look innocent. That recording is not relevant to patient care. Elena Hartwell looked at him. Play it. The first sound was static, then the faint background noise of the same corridor. Wheels, a page turning, a distant child coughing. Then Victor's voice came through the speakers, smooth and unmistakable. Move the Hartwell girl first. Don't let a paperwork delay embarrass us in front of a donor. No one moved. Not Owen. Not Elena. Not the anesthesiologist standing just outside or 3 with his hands folded in front of him. On the monitor, Carla looked toward Victor while his recorded voice continued. From the speaker. We cut the second ID check for nights. Just make the schedule look clean. The corridor went completely still. It was not the ordinary quiet of people being polite. It was the kind of silence that arrives when a room realizes it has been standing on something rotten and there is nowhere left to step. The air conditioner hummed above them. A piece of paper on the rolling station lifted at one corner, then settled back down. Somewhere inside or three, a monitor beeped once, though no child had been taken in. Noah's hand found Owen's and squeezed hard. Owen looked down at his son, not at Victor, and gently closed his fingers around the boys. The truth had finally become loud enough for adults to hear, and Owen did not want Noah to confuse that with victory. A child had still been seconds from anesthesia. Another child had still been left on the wrong floor. Elena reached for the white bracelet on Lily's wrist, then stopped before touching it, as if the plastic itself had become evidence too fragile for grief. Beverly carefully unclipped a duplicate ID strip from the discarded prep materials and placed it beside the scanner printout, the consent packet with the label pressed over the letter M, and the photograph from the transfer board. One by one, the objects formed a line on the counter. The bracelet that said Maya Reed. The bunny that said Lily. The log that said VIP first. The packet that had been covered. The recording that no one could make polite. Elena looked at all of them, then at Victor. Which part of my daughter was too expensive to verify? She asked. The question was quiet. That was why it cut through everyone. Victor opened his mouth. Nothing came. His hand moved to the pen clipped inside his jacket, then slipped. The pen fell, hit the floor, and rolled beneath the nurse's station with a small hollow sound. No one bent to pick it up. Carla covered her mouth, tears gathering fast now, but Beverly's face did not soften. Dr. Renner swallowed once and looked toward Owen, then away, unable to hold the gaze of the man he had called a janitor with opinions. Elena turned to Beverly. Stop all pediatric surgical transfers until every child in. This corridor is re-identified by 2 staff members and a guardian when available. Victor found his voice in pieces. Mrs. Hartwell, you do not have the authority to order hospital operations. Elena's eyes did not leave Beverly.
No.
But I have the authority to withdraw every Hartwell donation from a hospital that refuses to verify children by name. And I have the authority to call the board chair, the State Patient Safety Office, and my attorney before this recording disappears. She looked at the security supervisor. Preserve everything. Now. The supervisor nodded once, suddenly less interested in Victor's title than in the evidence glowing on the screen. Beverly picked up her radio. All pediatric or transfers are on hold. 2-person ID verification required immediately. Confirm Lily Hartwell and Maya Reed first. Her voice cracked only on Maya's name. The anesthesiologist stepped forward and removed the mask from the tray entirely, placing it inside a sealed bin. It was a small act, but the sight of it made Elena's knees bend slightly. She gripped Lily's bed rail to steady herself. Owen stepped forward just enough to move a chair closer with his foot, not touching her, not presuming anything.
Elena noticed.
For the first time since the hallway had become a trial, she looked at him not as a disruption, not as a poor man in the wrong place, not even as someone who had saved her daughter, but as a father who had understood the terror before she had been allowed to see it. Mr. Brooks, she said, and his name sounded different in her mouth than it had in Renner's. Owen shook his head once, gently. Check Maya too. Those 3 words changed Elena's face more than gratitude could have. She turned toward the other gurney, where Maya Reed sat wrapped in the thin blanket, eyes swollen from crying, one nurse kneeling beside her. Elena crossed the small space between the beds and lowered herself until she was eye level with the little girl. Maya, she said carefully, as if returning something stolen. They are going to check you now. Maya nodded, frightened but listening. Noah leaned against Owen's side, his breath finally leaving him in a shaky stream. Dad, he whispered. Is she okay? Owen looked at Lily, then at Maya, then at the evidence still spread across the counter. She is being seen now, he said. That matters. Security approached Victor, not with handcuffs, not with drama, but with the quiet finality of institutional power changing direction. Mr. Crane, the board chair is requesting you step away from the clinical area. Victor looked at Elena, then at the monitor, Then, at the recording file still open on the screen, there was nowhere left for his smile to stand. As he walked out, the corridor did not jeer. It did not clap. It simply watched him leave in the silence he had tried to demand from everyone else. Owen remained near the wall, one arm around Noah, his name badge still lying on the counter beside the proof. The truth had been recognized, the powerful had finally acted, and the wrong child had been stopped at the door. But as Elena turned back toward him with tears in her eyes and the whole hallway looking on, Owen understood that the next choice mattered too. Whether to take the moment for himself, or use it to make sure no child in that hospital ever had to be saved by accident again. After Victor Crane was escorted out of the pediatric corridor, nobody clapped. The silence he left behind was not victory. It was the kind of silence that makes people look at the floor and understand how close they came to becoming part of something they would never have forgiven themselves for. Beverly Tate moved first, because nurses like her knew that shock could not be allowed to hold a hospital still for long. She lifted the radio to her mouth and began rebuilding the night one name at a time. Maya Reed, 6 years old. Appendectomy prep. Guardian contact confirmed. Lily Hartwell, 7 years old. Cardiac evaluation hold. No anesthesia administered. Each sentence sounded plain, almost boring, and that was what made it holy. Plain words were finally doing what polished authority had failed to do. Lily was wheeled back to recovery observation with her cream-colored bunny tucked beneath her chin, the stitched name facing up. Maya was brought 2 or 3 only after Beverly and another nurse read her name, date of birth, procedure, and wristband out loud while her mother stood beside the bed, crying so hard she could barely nod. Owen kept Noah near the wall, away from the center of the grown-up consequences. "You do not have to watch all of this," he whispered. Noah looked at Maya's mother holding her daughter's foot under the blanket. "I just want to know they say it right," he said. So Owen stayed until they did. Not as a hero, not as a witness demanding praise. Just as a father making sure his son saw that truth was supposed to lead to protection, not spectacle. By midnight, the hospital board chair had arrived with 2 risk officers and a patient safety representative who carried a sealed evidence box. The wrong wristband, the scanner printout, the consent packet with the label pressed over the hidden M, the transfer log, and the recording were placed inside one by one. The white bracelet looked smaller in the box than it had looked on Lily's wrist. That was the strange thing about evidence. Once people stopped pretending it was harmless, it became almost fragile. Dr. Renner approached Owen near the nurse's counter after the first review. His white coat still crisp, but his face changed by exhaustion and shame. He looked at Noah first, then lowered his eyes to Owen. "Mr. Brooks," he said, and this time there was no edge on the word Mr. "I was wrong. I dismissed you because of your job. I dismissed your son because of his age. I am sorry." The corridor waited. Owen could have made the apology hurt. He had earned that right and everyone knew it. Instead he glanced at Noah, then back at the doctor. "Make sure the next person you dismiss is not holding the truth," he said. Dr. Renner nodded once, the kind of nod that did not erase anything but accepted the weight of it. Carla Voss was placed on administrative leave pending investigation and required to turn over all communications from the shift. She cried when Beverly walked past her, but Beverly did not comfort her with lies. Victor's access badge was deactivated before dawn, and the board referred the recording, staffing report, and transfer records to the state patient safety office and the hospital's licensing council. There was no dramatic punishment in the hallway, no shouting, no public humiliation for its own sake. The punishment was quieter and heavier. The system that had protected him began documenting him. Elena Hartwell found Owen outside the family waiting room after sunrise. The windows were pale with morning, and the floor Owen had mopped hours earlier reflected the first weak gold of the day. His name badge was back in his hand, not on his chest. The plastic edge had cracked near the clip when he set it down during the standoff.
Elena noticed.
She did not offer to buy him a new life. She did not speak to him like money could repair the insult or the fear. She stood beside him for a moment, both of them watching Noah sleep curled in a chair with his jacket under his cheek. "You saved my daughter," she said. Owen shook his head slightly. Noah read the band. Beverly scanned it. Maya's nurse found her. A lot of people had to stop being afraid at the same time. Elena looked toward or 3, where a temporary paper sign had already been taped to the door. 2-person ID verification required before entry. And you? She asked. Owen turned the cracked badge in his fingers. I stood where my son could see me. That answer settled into Elena more deeply than any speech could have. By the end of the week, the temporary sign became a permanent one, brushed metal with black lettering mounted outside every pediatric or every child's name must be spoken before the door opens. Elena funded the return of the second night shift ID check, but she put the money under an independent patient safety committee, not her own foundation banner. She created a protected reporting fund for staff who flagged safety risks, and when the hospital tried to name it after the Hartwell family, she refused. The first line of the policy named Lily Hartwell and Maya Reed together. Owen asked for that. He also asked that Beverly's role be recorded in the official report, and that Noah not be paraded at a press conference like a little boy responsible for fixing adult failure. Elena agreed before he finished the sentence. He should get to be 9, she said. Owen looked at her then, really looked, and saw not a billionaire, not a donor, not a woman with the power to make rooms change direction, but a mother who had almost learned the cost of being managed instead of told the truth. Something gentle passed between them, not romance, not yet, not anything that needed a name, just respect, the kind that can become trust if time treats it carefully. On Owen's next shift, the hallway outside or 3 smelled again of lemon disinfectant and warmed plastic. Noah walked beside him for the first few minutes before school, carrying a new pencil Beverly had given him from the nurse's station. When they passed the metal sign, Noah stopped. From inside the surgical corridor, a nurse's voice read clearly, Maya Reed, date of birth confirmed, procedure confirmed. Another voice answered, confirmed. Noah looked up at his father. Do you think Mom would be proud? Owen clipped the cracked badge back onto his uniform. For a moment, he listened to the quiet beyond the doors, not the silence of fear this time, but the silence of people paying attention. Then he rested his hand on Noah's shoulder and said, I think she would have heard her name too. They walked on together, past the clean floor, past the sealed evidence box being carried toward the review office, past the door where a child had almost disappeared under the wrong name, and Owen pushed his mop slowly through the morning light, because dignity does not need to raise its voice. Sometimes it just keeps the floor steady until justice can stand on it.